produce a full report on the responsible sourcing of fare to inform the next steps that need to be taken, and we're committed to publishing an animal welfare strategy later this week.
Rachel.
Mr Speaker, my constituent Molly is a single mother caring for a child with cancer. She cannot work because of her caring responsibilities. Since January, she has tried to claim disability living allowance and universal credit, but faced constant DWP bureaucracy. This bureaucracy is continuing right up to yesterday, when she received yet another frustrating letter from the DWP about her DLA. Will the Prime Minister assure Molly and others like her that his government is doing all that it can to help, and visit Tiverton and Minehead to see these challenges firsthand and work with me to find a solution?
Prime Minister.
Well, I can thank her for raising this case, and I'm deeply sorry to hear about Molly's situation. We are improving the lives of those that need it, but what I'll do, with her permission, the Secretary of State, the DWP, has just said to me, I'll look into the case. So if she could provide the details, I'll make sure that it gets proper attention and that we can deal with the particular problem she's raised. And I'm grateful to her, and I'm sure Molly is, for raising it. And I hope now we can take the action that's necessary.
Alex Burns.
Mr Speaker, in Wales we will never forget how our steel industry was neglected by the Conservative government. They made unfunded promises, they refused to make critical decisions, and they left Port Talbot on a cliff edge. So can I welcome the news overnight that this Labour government has secured an exemption for our steel industry from the latest US tariffs, a deal secured by this Labour Prime Minister. Can I ask the Prime Minister if he will take this opportunity to update the House on what further work he is doing in order to support our steel workers across Wales and across our United Kingdom?
Prime Minister.
He's doing great work with the Welsh Labour colleagues to champion working people in Wales. Mr Speaker, the United Kingdom is the only country in the world which won't be subject to the additional tariffs announced today, the only country in the world, and we are working with the US at this moment to swiftly implement the agreement that we've reached, which will see the 25% tariffs removed. We want that, they don't want that, and that's crucial. That is crucial for British jobs. We fought tooth and nail for our steel industry, saving jobs at British Steel and improving the deal at Port Talbot, and we'll continue to do so.
Brendan O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister has repeatedly told this House that it is not for him or his government to determine what is and what is not a genocide. But that position is no longer tenable, because at the High Court recently, the Prime Minister instructed his lawyers to argue that in Gaza, and I quote, no genocide has occurred or is occurring. So the truth is, his government has made a determination. The question is, does he have the courage of his convictions, and will he repeat from that dispatch box what he told his lawyers to argue in the High Court, that he believes that no genocide has occurred or is occurring in Gaza?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I've said that we are strongly opposed and appalled by Israel's recent actions. We've been absolutely clear in condemning them and calling them out, whether that's the expansion of military operations, settler violence or the dreadful blocking of aid. It's completely unacceptable. We must see a ceasefire, hostages must be released, and there must be aid into Gaza. But he talks about peace and security, Mr Speaker. Compare their party, as I understand it, at this moment of global instability, as we go into a new era, what do they want to do? They want to get rid of the nuclear deterrent, the single most important capability that we have to keep the UK safe, harming the industry and harming the country.
Red Downey.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Carnegie UK was established by Dunfermline-born philanthropist Andrew Carnegie, and they found that people under 49 are twice as likely to have been negatively impacted by the rising cost of living compared to those over 65s. Mr Speaker, it's vital we increase opportunities for younger people and help put more money in their pocket. But sadly this week we saw the Scottish Government seek to close off an opportunity for young people by refusing to support new skills investment from Rolls-Royce, while the college sector in Scotland also warns of a funding crisis. Can I ask the Prime Minister what more he is doing to make sure young people in Scotland get the opportunities they deserve, despite a failing and stagnant SNP Scottish Government?
Well, I thank him for raising this. At a time of global conflict, it is staggering that the SNP policy is to block an £11 million investment for a new national welding centre on the Clyde. To block it. I was there, Mr Speaker, earlier this week. I saw the huge potential for apprenticeships, for job opportunities and for young people. I support it, they block it. In England, Mr Speaker, we're backing 120,000 more apprentices and £3 billion of funding as part of our plan for change. And despite the highest funding settlement in the history of devolution, they're cutting college budgets, they're blocking opportunities, they have no plan for Scotland's future.
Sir Poaching.
Given the Prime Minister's desire to strengthen strategic alignment with our European neighbours, will he, in the interests of public safety, follow the lead of France, Denmark, Belgium and others and ban the burqa?
Prime Minister.
Can I welcome her to her place? But I'm not going to follow her down that line. But now she is here and safely in her place, perhaps she could tell her new party leader that his latest plan to bet £80 billion of unfunded tax cuts, he's no idea how he's going to pay for it, is Liz Truss all over again. Although, considering I think she was a Conservative member when Liz Truss was leader, she probably won't.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. During recess, I visited Scottish Action for Mental Health's Red Hall Walled Garden, which I'm proud to say is in Edinburgh South West. It has operated for decades as a therapeutic horticultural centre supporting adults with mental health problems. Like similar community mental health services across Scotland, it is now under threat. It faces potential closure due to chronic underfunding of IGBs by the SNP government. Does the Prime Minister agree that facilities like Red Hall Walled Garden should have been a priority for the SNP when deciding how to spend the record funding settlement Scottish Labour MPs won for Scotland?
Prime Minister.
What my honourable friend describes is how health services in Scotland are utterly broken under the SNP. From people waiting too long for mental health support in his constituency to the Wishaw neonatal unit in Hamilton, which the SNP are threatening to downgrade. In 2021, the SNP said they recruit 1,000 more community mental health workers. They utterly failed to do so. If the SNP had a plan to fix Scotland's NHS, they'd have done it by now. Scotland needs a change of direction.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Sir John Cunliffe's interim report published yesterday laid out the fundamental changes that are needed for our water sector. This is felt no more acutely than in my constituency of Chichester. We have a harbour that's in an unfavourable declining condition and sewage is blighting our tourism industry. But with water bills from Southern Water rising by 47% for my constituents, can the Prime Minister tell them when they can expect to see the real change that this government promised and our waterways cleaned up for good?
Well, can I share her anger and frustration at the broken water system that we inherited, with frankly appalling sewage, higher bills and executives paying themselves huge bonuses. And the era of being rewarded for failure is over. We've launched a record 81 criminal investigations into law-breaking water companies in England, introduced the Water Act with prison sentences for polluting bosses and banning unfair bonuses, and will respond to the Independent Water Commission in full following the publication of the final report.
David Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The proposed Hemel Health Campus, a partnership between the NHS and the Council, presents a perfect opportunity to deliver on Labour's commitment to neighbourhood-based care, bringing services closer to where people live, in facilities designed around their needs. It can also help to regenerate our town centre. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that it is essential that all stakeholders involved in the project are as ambitious as possible and work to deliver a community hospital that builds on the services currently available and reflects the evolving needs of our town?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I pay tribute to how he's bringing people together to deliver better care in the community that meets the needs of his constituents? The proposals for the health campus will be open to public consultation. I'd urge the whole community to input into that to ensure the strongest investment case is put forward. I'm pleased that waiting lists in his local trust have fallen by a fifth since March 24 because of the investment that we've put into the NHS, which of course was opposed by the parties opposite.
Number to put together.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. Over the past few months, I've been meeting with care providers in my constituency of Stratford-on-Avon who deliver essential and expert care to some of my most vulnerable constituents. But like so many small businesses, they are under huge financial pressures, and the hike in national insurance is yet another burden many can't afford. I welcome the government part U-turn on winter fuel payment cuts following pressure from these Liberal Democrat benches. So when will the Prime Minister offer relief to care providers and other small businesses and U-turn on the punitive hike to national insurance?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we announced £502 million to support local authorities to manage the changes in NICs. We put £3.7 billion in additional funding for social care, doubled the Disabilities Facilities Grant, and introducing the first ever fair pay agreement for professional carers, including minimum standards for pay. But I would just gently say to her, her party opposed the budget which provides the money for the funding. You can't keep asking for more spending and oppose a budget which raises the money.
Natalie Fleet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The first constituent to reach out to me was a brave bowls-over mummy who had waited 4 years, 5 months from rape to prosecution, with 3 postponements and multiple suicide attempts. I will do everything I can to use this chamber to speak out for women that are being so badly let down. How will the Prime Minister support me to make sure that when these survivors, these formidable women across the country come forward, they will get justice and there will be space in our prisons for their perpetrators?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for raising this case so powerfully and everything that she's doing on it? The case she's outlined is utterly shameful, and for far too many victims are waiting too long for justice. Mr. Speaker, we're delivering a record number of sitting days, reviewing criminal courts to speed up the hearing of these cases and have as a mission to halve violence against women and girls. She talks about the prison system. The party opposite left the prison system on the brink of collapse, routinely operating at 99% capacity because in 14 long years they only added just 500 extra places. We will deliver 14,000 new prison places so the public are protected from these vile offenders.
Lincoln John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister told us during the general election that he is a socialist. What's been more surprising is to find out in the last couple of weeks that the leader of the Reform Party might be one too. As the Chancellor puts the spending review and locks it down, will the Prime Minister please remind her of Mrs Thatcher's all too pertinent observation that the trouble is with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money to spend.
Was it Kwasi Kwarteng that he replaced? And now he stands there to give lectures on economic prudence. You couldn't script it. But, Mr. Speaker, the difference between the Labour government and the parties opposite Reform is we believe in properly costing our plans. They've got £80 billion worth of unfunded commitments. Liz Truss 2.0.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Blackpool's own boxing champion Brian Rose uses his gym to tackle knife crime, antisocial behaviour and give young people a safe space, demonstrating the significant impact of amateur gyms. Thousands of these amateur gyms up and down the country operate on a shoestring and can't afford to keep the lights on, reliant on brilliant charities like Maverick All-Stars, Empire's Fighting Chance and Matchroom in the Community. Would the Prime Minister join me in thanking these charities, praising the volunteers in these gyms, and will he throw a haymaker behind these gyms, giving them the knockout support they need to continue their vital work?
Well, can I thank him? He's a great champion for how amateur boxing gyms can transform both physical and mental health and confidence in young people. And the time, I have to say, given by selfless volunteers is inspiring, and we should thank them for it. England Boxing are investing £9 million in the sport, and GB Boxing will also receive more than £12 million during the next Olympic Games cycle. And I know my honourable friend will be looking forward to Liverpool hosting the inaugural World Boxing Championship, I think, in September.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since July, health services in my constituency have got worse. The Chase Hospital may close. In Borden, the promised health hub has not arrived. And in Haslemere this week, we've learnt that inpatient wards are being closed because of a lack of GP cover. The Prime Minister promised hundreds of more GPs. Could he possibly send one or two of them to Farnham and Borden?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I remind myself they left the NHS on its knees. The last Labour government brought the waiting list down to record lows. They drove them up to record highs. The last Labour government had the highest possible confidence in the NHS. They dragged it down to the lowest ever levels. Because of the money that we're putting in, we've done 3 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government. That's the difference Labour makes in power.
David Pinto-Chichinsky.
Mr. Speaker, the Environment Agency predicts that 8 million homes, that's 1 in 4 in England, could be at risk of flooding by 2050. But despite this, the party opposite presided over a tripling of the proportion of our flood defences deemed not adequate. By contrast, this Labour government is investing over £2.6 billion in new flood defences, including in the Greenway in my Hendon constituency. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that it's a shame that not all parties share this government's determination to keep homes safe from flooding?
Prime Minister.
I thank him for highlighting this, because the party opposite left our flood defences in the worst state on record. It's prisons, it's NHS, it's the economy, it's flooding. Every single thing they touched, they broke. We're investing £2.65 million to build and maintain flood defences, and that means 52,000 more properties will be protected by March of next year.
Mr. Speaker, Glastonbury is experiencing a notable increase in antisocial behaviour. St John's Church was recently forced to close its doors after gravestones were reportedly used as counters for drug transactions. Constituents Peter and Melanie told me that people have been targeted when collecting their pensions with demands for money, leaving them feeling scared and overwhelmed. The lawlessness is deterring tourists, and business owners have told me trade is suffering. As visitors start to arrive ahead of the Glastonbury Festival, could the Prime Minister reassure my constituents that he will give the police the additional resource that they need to tackle this threatening and menacing behaviour to reduce the devastating crime wave sweeping through the town?
Well, she's absolutely right to raise this, and antisocial behaviour massively impacts on individuals and their communities, and that's why we're introducing 13,000 new neighbourhood police and giving them better powers, respect orders, so they can actually deal with what they see on the streets effectively. It's very important that we take this seriously.
David Burton-Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This time last year, Southend United Football Club almost went bankrupt thanks to the mismanagement by the former owner. But on Sunday, they made it to Wembley for the National League playoff finals. And despite being beaten by Oldham Athletic in the 11th hour, it was like the phoenix rising from the flames to see them on the pitch. So will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating Southend United on their outstanding recovery, and give me an assurance that the government's doing all they can to make sure that no club ever has to go through what our club went through?
Let me congratulate Southend on what was an incredible achievement. Commiserations for the final result. One of the police officers on my team, Mr. Speaker, is an ardent Southend supporter, so I know all about the team and the plans and the stadium and what it means. But I should also congratulate Oldham, of course, for that victory as well. Thank you.
Right, final question, Sir David Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 1999, the Prime Minister produced a book on miscarriage of justice, recommending ways of preventing them or quickly putting them right. But in 2014, people who had been wrongly imprisoned and then exonerated were only allowed compensation if they could prove their innocence beyond reasonable doubt. This ignored the decision of the court exonerating them and actually meant that 93% of people who had been wrongfully imprisoned, often had their lives destroyed, got no compensation whatsoever. This is an institutional miscarriage of justice. Will he instruct the Department of Justice to review this matter and pay personal attention to actually getting this travesty of justice resolved?
Prime Minister.
Well, he raises a really important issue that I'm obviously aware of. It is right that victims of miscarriage can apply for compensation and appropriately do so, and I'll take away what he says and have it looked at.
Right, with that completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front bench change over.